That's how it feels.
So, welcome back to the Matrix, and welcome back. You guys know Regina by now. I mean, she graces us on Primal Poetic. She's on everything. In fact, she's going to infiltrate every show on Primal in a minute. Okay, she's going to start scratching and making music.
Corner next week.
I know she's going to be on King's Corner as the queen. Right? Yes. So we are happy to have her back on the Matrix. She was on before talking about the project that you have going on actively right now at St. Francis. So we were talking about that. What's the name of it's Child Safety?
Child Safety Forward. And actually, some of the men from it are going to be on King's Corner. So there's, I forget the exact date, but so if I'm not on the Matrix, if I'm not on Primal, I'm sending somebody to Primal.
Okay. True great. Family, Primal family member. Okay, that's excellent. Wonderful to know. So today, guys, we are going to dive into the world of colorism. Mom and I touched on it before, but we have a gift of having Regina knowing much more in depth about it, having taken a class in it, and she will share her perspective, and we'll just dive into the discussion. And we hope that you will help us out in the chat room, talk about your experiences with it, whether it was you, your family member, what you've seen in terms of colorism. And we want to make sure that I actually will highlight the fact that it's not just about dark-skinned men and women feeling it. It goes the other way. Okay, there are light-skinned people saying, hey, I'm Black too, excuse me. So there's, it happens on both ends. It's not just a problem for one shade of people. So let's make that clear. So do you want to just dive in and tell us about either the writing that you did, or did you want to talk about the class and what you learned from the class?
Let's see. I'll start a little bit, I guess, with just a little background.
Sure.
So, colorism is the belief, like any ism believes something is superior. So ism believes that light is superior, lighter is superior. Mm-hmm. And like all isms, it harms everyone.
Yes.
So it's harmful to every shade all along the range of the rainbow that is us. It harms every last person on there.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to say that we internalize it. Mm-hmm. We have internalized it, and it's an illness from which we need to be healed.
Wow.
Rather than an argument we need to have where we yell back and forth at each other.
Yes.
It's an illness that manifests itself in many ways. Sadly, it's all throughout the diaspora.
Absolutely.
One of the things I discovered when doing research to put together articles for my students to read in a class that I teach at the UConn School of Social Work called the Urban Semester Seminar. We look at things that students need to know who plan to work in cities or with urban populations. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I learned was that 70% of women in Nigeria use some form of skin lightening cosmetic on a daily basis.
Yes. And 40% of Africans in Africa as well. 40% of all Africans. And so 70% in Nigeria?
Nigeria, yes. Whew. That was just, way up there. So we have truly, truly learned to hate ourselves.
No, yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
And even when you put evidence in front of people that lets them know that some of these agents are harmful or even deadly to their health, they will still choose to use them. And I'll never forget, I was watching a news broadcast from Jamaica that was looking at, the high incidence of people using things to lighten their skin. Mm-hmm. And they spoke with one woman and said, do you know that this thing you're taking is known to cause cancer? And she said, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but look at how pretty and bright I am.
Ooh. Yeah.
Which kind of said to me, I would rather
Die.
Die.
I'd rather die.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather die than live and stay Black.
Yeah.
And so, I don't think I have a lot to say. I think I'm going to move to the personal. I'm going to quote Gloria Steinem on a different quote of hers. Gloria Steinem said, the personal is political.
Yes.
What she meant by that, we often feel like we're alone, or there are individual issues, or this person doesn't have good self-esteem, or this, that, and the other is bad. But for everything that manifests in our individual and communal lives, there's a macro influence of politics and culture and beliefs and racism and economy and who's making money.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And one of the manifestations on colorism, when it comes to, especially to women, using all of these things to lighten our skin, straighten our hair, and all this stuff, is that people make a lot of money.
Right.
Having convinced us that there's something very wrong with us.
Yes.
And if we'll only buy their product,
yes,
then they will be better and indeed more lovable.
Absolutely.
We equate it with that, with more lovable. Yeah. So I want to share some of a piece that I've written and then talk about a poem I've written, because I think it does, I'll dare say, even though I wrote it, I think it does a good job of showing where the personal is political, and that, people can relate to personal things. Yeah. So I won't read the whole story because it's 13 minutes long, but it's called Ay mi morena, and which is a Spanish phrase for, oh, little dark one, or my dark one, And it is about a light-skinned Puerto Rican boy who had a crush on me when I was 15, and I didn't get it. Colorism was absolutely the reason I didn't get it, my internalized. So I'll just read some excerpts, and I hope they make sense. If they don't, ask me a question, I'll tie it together. Mm-hmm. All of the subtle, nonverbal, and direct oral teachings of 15 years had taught me that lighter skin was better than darker skin. Certainly pretty, and somehow had greater inherent value of personhood. An a priori truism of the 1950s and 60s was that to be Puerto Rican and Trigueña, a mixture of three racial colors resulting in a range of tan shades, this must be superior to being brown or Black. This truism made Black Puerto Ricans, negras, negritas, and morenas, invisible to me, until my political and social awakening on the topic years later. Mm-hmm. Racism and colorism are confusing, especially to a child. If lighter was better and recognizable Puerto Ricans were light with wavy or curly hair, why did Black and white people talk about Puerto Ricans worse than they talked about colored, Negro, and Black people? Just couldn't figure it out. Mm-hmm. Then I move a little bit forward to this young man courting me, talking to me. Mm-hmm. And we started talking on the phone, and we would come over to sit with my parents, my brother, and me on a Saturday evening or Sunday afternoon. Why would he want to do something so boring as this? He's cute. He could be out getting some. That's it. Sex. Mm-hmm. He thinks I'll have sex with him. Somebody told him Black, big-chested, big-butt girls give it up. After all, I was Ella's friend, and he's confused me with a bird in her wild flock. But at least Tito and Ella made sense. They were both yellow and about the same height. I was chocolate, Pedro was caramel, and he was at least 4 inches shorter than me. Now we move to where he's gotten in good with my parents. Mm-hmm. He hasn't tried to slam me against the wall or do anything gross. I can't figure out why he's hanging around. And then he's asked my mother if I can go to dinner at his house. And my mother, damn it, says yes. So I'm in his house and we're going toward the kitchen. I see his grandmother. I questioned my perceptions as she twirled around from the stove to face us. She moved as if transported by the steam coming from the caldera, the big rice pot. Mm-hmm. A short but strong, sinewy, and sepia brown woman smiled with her eyes, lips, and cheeks. Sweat trickled down from her tight, nappy curls escaping from her flowered headscarf. She looked up and slowly opened her mouth, which completed the smile. The gap between her front teeth made her mouth look decades younger than her soft but worn face. Wow. The core of her pupils shone out at me, overpowering, yet accentuating the background of her eyes. Ah, Reina. Pedro said, I wanted you to meet my abuela. She was as brown as me.
Wow.
She giggled. He said, Reina, Regina, Reina, Regina. They both mean queen, in English and in Spanish. Mm-hmm. She grabbed my hands and giggled some more and said, Reina, Reina. I ate quietly and confused. It would be another 40 years before I understood the depth of affection of that night. Mm-hmm. I would first need healing of internalized racism, colorism, and my beat down self-esteem that was rooted in sexual abuse. He saw the beauty in me that I could not see, inward or outer. He asked his grandmother to cook for me. I reminded him of his beloved abuela. Confused, I broke up with him before the next weekend. I didn't know boys had feelings. I didn't know I was beautiful.
Wow.
He always respected me. Confused, I waited on edge to be slammed against the wall, grinded and slobbered on. He never did that. I didn't know what to make of that. God bless you, Pedro Figueroa. I hope somebody loved you right. Is how I ended it. And so, the good news today is I'm so much better than I was years ago.
Yeah.
But, it made me think of, it's not just the association with beauty or prettiness. It's the association that tells us that what's lighter is more precious.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And someone in the chat said, because as you were talking, someone in the chat reiterated what I was thinking. Professor Scott from Black Talk says, one of the greatest tricks of the colonizers perpetrated on us was to convince us that our skin was a curse, backed up by all the images of God and Jesus and angels as white. And that's the truth. White was associated with purity, or is, and Black is associated with evil and darkness.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, I want to be transparent and vulnerable because I know, I say something, but a lot of people are feeling it and thinking it. Mm-hmm. So I've been on this program before and I've, outed myself as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. Well, somehow in a little girl's mind trying to make sense of things, mm-hmm. I thought this had something to do with me that included my color. That if I were lighter and looked precious,
wow,
I really thought I lacked the element that made people look at little girls and go, oh,
yes. Wow. Whew.
And so I thought, and it was my father, so of course.
Yes.
And my father was very dark, so yeah, I'm seeing white Jesus, and I'm seeing black devils. I must be a demonette.
Right.
You know,
right.
and you get the whole thing of too, that dark is seductive. And that goes for like all women of color. You know, we get into this like, you know, we're the temptress, we're the seductive thing. And, you know, you get that in what I call twisted Christianity that blames women for men not controlling their lust.
Right. Right.
You know, and then, dark women like, I must be black ass Jezebel. Is what, you know, that's how this really talk about body dysmorphia. What this crazy idea of what I thought I looked like when I was 10.
Yes.
And it went on for another generation of damage. And this is one of the most hurtful things in my life because I wasn't thinking it every day. It wasn't conscious, right?
Yeah, it's never conscious usually.
But because I thought my color had something to do with drawing abusers to me. When my daughter came out at least 3 shades lighter than me, I thought she was safe. And she wasn't.
Wow. No, she was
but
not.
I thought the whole world would see her and say, oh, and they did. Say, oh. And I thought nobody could fathom hurting her. And yet someone molested her when she was 4. And I thought her skin, her hair, had saved her from that. I knew that didn't make any sense. You know, by the time I was grown, I didn't think, oh yeah, somebody's gonna rape that little black girl, but the little yellow one will get away. But I really thought people would see the little yellow one and see something precious.
That's precious, yes.
And you know, then I learned they do it to Goldilocks.
They sure do.
You know, whatever, you know, perverts are perverts.
You don't have value, period. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And I thought, I think that's just one of the, And then we look, when I talk about it being internalized. In a poem, I rage at my father and say, perhaps worse than everything you did is what you didn't do. You never read me a story. You never twirled me around. You know, and I repeat louder and louder and more angrily, you never told me I was pretty. That's true. You never told me I was pretty. You laughed and you called me Topsy, Eatmo, and laughed and said, who is your pappy? Because your hair sure is nappy.
Wow.
So my black father told his black daughter she was ugly.
And so you're supposed to love yourself?
You're not supposed to believe
After that?
Yeah, right.
Believe that?
Right, exactly. If my own father won't love me.
Right.
The stories of many people listening right now all over the world are saying, that's me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just, I mean, crazy. I was telling Denise the other day about a friend of mine who came from a large family. There were 3 boys and 5 girls, but she said her father referred to my 3 sons and my 5 bitches.
Huh?
Yeah. So
wow.
5 bitches, you know, and you made them. And so this is an internal kind of thing, not only within us as African people, as well as within communities, as well as, you know, within families. And I guess one of the questions that everybody wants to know is, why hasn't it gone away?
Yeah, that's
we still have colonized minds.
We do. And I thought it went away in the 60s when people were saying, I'm Black and I'm proud. I thought from your perspective back then that everybody was proud. And then I don't know, did it shift? Was not everybody like that or what?
Oh, I think that I think that the big racist capitalists work hard to make sure it wouldn't remain.
It wouldn't go away.
I think we did get better for a while. But I asked myself, what happened to Black is Beautiful? Was there ever a women's movement? But you see, so many of us want to be as I believe women are free to look how they want to look.
Yes.
But I'm saying I don't think women, and I'll be specific here, Black women, half of us don't even know or have the space in our spirit to imagine. That's the key word, imagine and create how we want to look. We are choosing from, it might as well be a catalog. Somebody saying, here's the blonde wig, here's the Black straight hair, here's the skin bleaching cream soap pill, and here's the women on TV and in magazines that we said are pretty. So you need to look like this, and then we see who gets promoted. I want to leave it to just women, but when you look at men, you see, who's promoted, who's pushed up, who's moved forward.
Look right now, when you look at the Black men who are on these morning shows, I mean, they all look alike. They're all tall, they're all thin, they're all fairly light. There's not one of them is a dark-skinned brother. Any of the popular TV shows now, they're like cookie stuff. What do you call it?
Yeah, cookie cutters. Yeah.
Not on the sports programs though, Mom. The sports commentators are chocolate.
And so that says something to me too. Okay.
Does it?
Big old gorilla man, and you can run and jump and beat people. You could be a wrestler, a boxer, a football player, a sports announcer. Yeah, but
I don't know.
Put forth as our romantic leads, and who I especially look in corporate America. Not that you never find it, but you're hard pressed, to find deep Black high up in corporate America.
That's right.
And nappy deep Black, I don't think so.
Don't be big. Don't be a big deep Black nappy man, because you're a danger. You're a danger to white women and white men too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you cannot be in those circles. Mm-hmm. Now you're right about the 60s, because I saw that transformation. And Boston was, the Mississippi of the North. And my best friend was a lighter skinned person. And when we were together, I got no attention until about 68 when that flipped. She would tell you the same thing if she was on here, because she was like, she recognized. I never realized that she noticed the change, because all of a sudden I'm like the ebony queen.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, I got my big afro, and men are stopping and taking pictures of me and all of this. And I'm like, wow, what happened? Because yes, Black became beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But
and
like it
who was
behind that movement?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I feel like it still is. That's always how I've grown up. And I thought that it was, and I thought that it, knowing that women take pills, what is it called? I wrote it down because I couldn't, glutathione. That's what these people are taking in utero to make their kids lighter skin in Africa. Yes.
Oh my God.
They're popping pills so that their kids, so back in the day when people would marry to lighten the race, now you don't have to do that. You can just take a pill to have a child that becomes lighter in utero. And I'll tell you a little story about that too, as having a baby. There's too much to talk about. I'm going to get lost in my own translation. But just to go back to saying that I never experienced that in school, darker, lighter, she's better than you. I didn't experience it. It's not my worldview at all. I just see it on TV, what other people go through, or I'll hear it from one friend over here, but it's not really my frame of reference. That's all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness. It makes no sense to either of my children. It's like, what? But then talk about like effects. I think if if my daughter wasn't real secure in who we are in our bond as a child, it could have damaged her.
Yeah.
People would, in a minute,
Yes.
say that she wasn't my baby.
Exactly.
Insinuate or just point out and out say it. Who with any sense would say in front of a toddler,
right,
well, that can't be your mother?
The point is they don't have any sense.
Right.
Well,
or ask questions like in front of both of us, where'd you get that Puerto Rican baby?
I heard all of that kind of stuff when I had my second born child, who was very pale. And I remember somebody I won't say who it was, but somebody in the birthing room with me, when they saw me push him out, said, if you hadn't have pushed that kid out, I wouldn't have thought it was your baby. Now, they didn't mean anything by that, though. That's the thing. A lot of this stuff, like you said, is so internalized that we don't even know that it could be offensive. And I wasn't offended at all.
Right.
I was offended when I left the hospital and people would see me with my son, who, yes, did look, I don't even know how, I couldn't characterize him. He was just a light-skinned little baby.
Right.
Yeah, he looked like his grandfather and his great-grandmother on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would say, where you get that red baby? And this is what really killed me. And this was said by a lot of women. Oh, he's going to be a heartbreaker. He's going to have all the women. First of all, he would have he's a cute little boy, but he would have been, first of all, I don't want him to be a womanizer, no matter what shade of brown he is. I don't want him to aspire to have all these women. That's not the dream I have for him, number one. And number two, it's not about his skin color. And I never wanted him to be as my second born child, to be compared differently to my 2-year-old daughter at the time, who was chocolate. Yeah. I had a chocolate and a vanilla, and they were both beautiful. And I wanted them to be seen as both beautiful equally. And I think people did that, but they still would say, they did, but they still said something about my son they didn't know. They didn't realize how damaging that could be to a child. You don't compare children. You don't talk about their skin unless you're going to say all of them are all beautiful because of the skin they're in. Equally.
Oh, well, you know what? That's true of my two kids the same way. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a little butterscotch baby, and then I used to call Edward the brown squirrel. I don't know why. brown squirrel, bushy tail.
The brown squirrel, he just love you.
Right. You know, his brother and sister, they're like this. You know, when he was born, Brenda didn't say, want to see my brother. She'd be, want to see my baby? You know, then it caused me to have to tell a few people. One of them was my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. You know, just rudely tell him off. Like, you know, if you ever say anything in front of either of these children to make them think one is better or worse than the other, based on the tone of their skin, they will not know you as their grandfather. They will know you as somebody who's too ignorant for us to talk to.
There you go.
That was serious. But then, you know, we talk about it hurting everyone. It let me see that not only he, but others, between Brenda's skin tone and her being female, that's all they saw. They didn't see brilliance.
Wow.
They would see that Edward was smart. He was the boy. You know, and some people see girls as smart, but they get so caught up on, and I felt like I had to do a lot of work so that she didn't define herself by how she looked.
I see.
Yeah, which she didn't, but that was purposeful, because you go into a room of women with children and they'd all start carrying on about her. And I mean, yeah, I think she's beautiful. She's mine, but she wasn't the most beautiful thing in the room necessarily. You know, it was just like if she was the lightest thing in the room, that's where it all went.
Wow.
You know, and so when people would start doing that, I would jump in and go, and look how nice Gracie is, and look how pretty Lisa is, and look how, you know, to do that. I'm doing that for Raina, Gracie, and Lisa. I'm doing that for all of them.
Absolutely. And you didn't want her to have that complex either. She's the best thing in the world, and you should value me because I look like this.
Right.
You don't want to reinforce what society, unfortunately, is trying to say. I'm going to get to the chat really quick. Lots of great comments going on, as you can imagine.
I can.
So about your story, Regina, people are just going crazy about it, liking what you wrote. Riri said, poor little babies don't even want black dolls, but cry for the white ones. Yeah. Professor Scott says, the only solace we have is that the deeper white archaeologists dig, the blacker antiquity gets. What? The white. Sorry, let me read this again. Deeper white archaeologists dig, the blacker antiquity gets. Oh, I get it.
Oh.
Yeah. Deb says, the lighter skin is better than black is a perception from slavery days. We were brainwashed into that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Scott says, the image of white Jesus is so powerful that when we close our eyes to pray, we see the image of a white God and a white Jesus. Deb says, yes, Scott, coming from the white Jesus, the whites being supreme. Scott also says it is powerful. The 3/5 let me see. People don't realize how incalculated systemic indoctrination permeates every fiber of the continual criminal enterprise. Anything darker than pastry is black. Professor X says it hasn't gone away because we do not know our history. Agree, because if we knew and loved ourselves and our historical significance, I've said this about 50,000 times, we wouldn't be trying to acclimate or be anybody. We'd just be happy to be any 32 shades of us.
Absolutely.
Period. And it doesn't matter.
You can teach it. We teach it and it doesn't go in. I mean, it doesn't get taught as much or as often. I'm not even saying it, but even when you teach it or you tell it, it doesn't go in. That's what I'm saying. Like, our internalized racism that comes out as colorism is an illness that needs treatment. And so I've heard a lot of, we need to know our history. Yes, we do. But that's not enough. It's like you wouldn't prescribe women's history to somebody who consistently gets into relationships where she is physically abused and violated and raped and, banged up with a gun. You wouldn't say, sister, if you just know women's history, you wouldn't do this. You'd be like, sister, you got psychological problems.
True. That's
and we want to act like psychology ain't real. We got deep psychological problems about how we look and who we are. And the mental health field.
I went to the way over to the left. I mean, when my friend Debbie and I would go to the beach, I'd be like lathering on some suntan lotion. I'm like trying to get black. She used to say, get out of my sun.
Yeah, the sun was on.
Naeem, I would have her with me, same thing. Hey, come on, I want you to be darker than you are.
You did do that when I was a kid. She wanted me to be browner.
Right. Yes.
I wasn't born dark enough for you, Mom. Now,
and my daughter, as much as she loves her daughters, it's like, I was hoping to get a brown baby out of me somewhere.
She did say that.
Where are these little yellow children looking like chickens?
It never made me feel a type of way, but she always thought of black as beautiful, and so she did want me to be browner, but it didn't make me feel that I wasn't beautiful though.
Yeah, no, I certainly never would do anything like that. And you were always beautiful, and you were always dark enough. I mean, you weren't like when you came out, you were brown skinned. My thing is that the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And even though my first boyfriend was light and everyone was like, oh, he's so fine because he's light and got a big afro. And that was the standard for a handsome black boy at the time when I was 16.
Yeah.
After that, it was black, darker, because I realized that I really preferred darker skinned men. So I never prescribed to that whole, I think light skin is better. I was just blessed to know that I'm happy with what I am, who I am, looking at my parents, yes, my grandmother was very, very fair. Of course, she was a slave when emancipation happened. She was a house slave in the kitchen. So yes, she was very, very fair. But within my family structure, we didn't have colorism going on. And so I'm just blessed that wasn't an issue for us.
And so then my grandfather.
I can't say I saw it in my family, but it was in my community enough that it obviously permeated my brain. In terms of boyfriends and stuff, they went the rainbow. You know, they went from black to light skin to white. So I just wasn't really concerned there. It's interesting. I didn't judge anybody else by their skin color.
Wow.
But me.
Just you.
You know, me, I got that message real clear. Mm-hmm. There was something very wrong with me.
Yeah. It's very cliche, but Black folks and brown folks in particular need to start seeing beauty within a person and stop seeing what's on the outside anyway.
Well, that's the way I feel about it.
You know, choose your friends better, develop your family structure better, thinking about what's on the inside, you know, and rather than trying to, you know.
I've come to the spiritual conclusion that the package in which friends and lovers are sent to me by the universe or by God are none of my business. Now, I know I'm wider than most people in that, but race, gender, skin tone, type of hair, able-bodied, disabled, cisgender, transgender, my spiritual conclusion is that is not my business. It's not okay for me to say, take it back, God, wrong color. Take it back, God, wrong body.
That's right.
That as you know, that the enlightened way to love would be that I'm drawn to a spirit.
Yes.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. Because I am drawn to spirit. They just, luckily for me, because it is my preference, they just happen to be darker men. I didn't go out there saying, okay, it's going to have to be this color or that shade or whatever. That was never in my purview at all. Yeah. It just happened to be that way. Like you said, spirit just brought me to these particular men because they were decent men, they were good men who happened to be dark-skinned men. And I was just blessed that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And then ethnicity plays a role, like you were talking about the your little friend's abuela. Like ethnicity is different than race. I mean, my great-grandfather my grandmother told me that they told him, oh, he can't be Black and Spanish. He can't speak Spanish and be Black. He was Panamanian. Yes, indeed, he could. I mean, people don't separate ethnicity and race. Yes, there's Black folks who are Spanish, y'all. I don't know who else need to hear that.
No, I keep telling
like people. It should be old news by now. Go ahead.
I could be Latin American. Like, come on. Absolutely. And there's somebody look just like me who is.
Yes.
And it's interesting that, you know, bringing that up reminds me that there is colorism within Latin America, within Asian Americans.
It's horrible.
It's global, really.
Yes.
Well, in there India, is that whole tendency, that psychology that we prefer the physical, prefer the physical characteristics of the people who colonized them.
Right.
So I think, you know, and I'd like to, I don't have an answer, but I'd like to, I think brainstorm in terms of, like I said, to me, it's a mental illness. And
it is a self-hate.
Those of us who are practicing clinicians, or, you know, that's what they do. Some of us are certainly looking into it and dealing with it and seeing it as a clinical issue. And I think that's something that should be pushed forth until that is a norm.
Absolutely.
Because it needs to be uncovered, just the way that for some people, they've forgotten or dissociated. I think we're dissociated out of our Black bodies and we dissociate into imaginary white bodies, you know, and then put on the stuff and buy the hair. And
no, I've never done that.
No, I've never done that. Thank goodness I've never done that.
And I can put on a wig too and still not be white. Me and Mom have this, you know, ongoing conversation. And not that I've ever put on a blonde weave or blonde wig, but I could, and I'll still be pro-Black. And many of us women can. It's an accessory. It's not that we're trying to be another race or that we're not proud to be natural or Black.
I'll just say, maybe I'm too old. I don't understand it. But here's one thing I do think about, and it's a little bit off the thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can do what you want. You paid for it. It's yours. You can put the blonde hair on top. But then don't talk about the white woman with the Afro wig. Leave her alone.
Or leave her alone. Some natty dreads.
Yep, you got to leave her alone.
Well, I don't see that. Do you see them rocking it? I mean, I don't. Not really.
Not anymore.
But
I used to be all over them when they did. We used to be all over them.
No,
we
I
weren't
read it
doing
right
blonde.
off their head.
Yeah, we used to be all over them. But at the same time, we weren't doing blonde, but we were doing, straight wigs at the same time. We mad at her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got out of straighten real quick. I got my afro in 1968. I was one of the first people to have an afro, and that was that. Mm-hmm. I got these in 1990. Mm-hmm. I remember I was at Trinity, and the black women, they were like, "Oh my God, you're going to damage your integrity wearing your hair like that." Really? No, I don't think so.
We did it the same. We did it the same year. I'll never forget. We did it the same year. We knew we would never look back.
Never look back.
Yeah. No. But we won't get into the hair and the wigs and the weaves and stuff like that. We won't go there tonight. Except I'll just say I don't understand it, and I wonder if underneath. I know good and well people, profess black while they're doing it. But anyway, I'm just going to leave it alone, and we'll go with the skin. We'll leave it alone.
We'll stick to the skin, because Lord knows we got no problem.
We'll do another show on hair.
Ain't nobody wearing a poison wig, okay? But we are ingesting poison.
Yes.
To try to change our skin. And we are poisoning our children, our women, and our men in terms of this preference of what we continue to do with one another. It's interesting. There's a little diagram I often draw in class, and I do a triangle, and I make the little tiny triangle at the tip, the top of it. And that's like the 1% that control all the wealth and stuff like that. And then ask the class to name all the other people that are in there. And the question I ask is, so if there's so many down here that are victims in a way of the 1%, and they're only 1%, how the heck do they get to do this when their numbers are so small? The answer is they don't have to do jack, because they trained us to do it to each other.
To each other. That's exactly right.
That's correct.
And that's where we are, I think, when it comes to colorism. We've been so well trained to do it to one another. I'd like to ask people I'd like to see what's in the chat, but I'd like to ask people to put in the chat, do they think it's a mental illness or a mental, emotional, or spiritual illness?
Yeah.
And what do they think can heal us?
What can heal us?
Yes.
Very good questions.
Absolutely. So they heard you, but I put it in there too. And so I'm going to read a couple of more things that are in here. Nazalim agrees with you, Mom. Hi, Naz. She said, tell the truth. 1968, flip the script. Let's see. Deb says that she noticed all advertisements with white people and white products. Yeah, another thing that indoctrinated, especially your generation back then, because I don't remember seeing all one shade. I mean, not to me, all one shade of people in commercials and such. Let's see. Deb said that she was tweeted every day with some dark colored people and white people in cosmetics, low self-esteem, not comfortable in their own skin. Andre says, paper bag test anyone? For those who might not know. Yeah, for those who might not know that piece of history, back in slavery time, they would say to put your skin up to a paper bag, and if it was darker than a paper bag, then you had to work in the field.
Well, I don't know if it went back that far, but I think certainly in maybe the 40s, 50s, and this was self
to us.
Yes, we did it to our own self. For example, I'll just say it right now. I could have never been an AKA, because if you wanted to be an AKA, you had to pass that paper bag test.
My bad. I'm about to say history wrong. So we made that test.
Oh, yes, we did.
Social clubs, Jack and Jill clubs, all kinds of things, neighborhoods. Even when we got to buying homes in suburban, East Orange, New Jersey, everybody's there now, and they associate it with all these, whatever. rap groups and thugs and so forth. But no, that was, you could not buy a home. The light-skinned people would not sell to the brown-skinned people. They made it a point. Their homeowners association kept you out. Yeah.
Yes. Whew. Self-hatred. And see, that self-loathing is a mental illness. The more we talk about it, the more apparent it's becoming. Professor Scott says you can't keep a people in bondage for 250 years and then release them, but continue to subject them to the brutality of the myth of white supremacy and not expect there to be inherited traits of PTSD. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Andre said it took hundreds of years to build this mess and it's going to take more time to neutralize the brainwashing. I agree. Scott also says you can see that Lin-Manuel's movie, Washington Heights. Oh, I haven't watched that yet. They said it really didn't depict Washington Heights in the true manner. That's what people said. He had said that he showed that he got backlash from plenty of darker skinned Hispanics, Latinos, because it really didn't factor in the true Washington Heights. Andre says, personally, I'm so glad for my melanin. I find full lips, full nose, negroid features to be so sexy. I can't abide my no lip, bird beak, nose, visage. Sorry, I need some lips and hips. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Andre.
You know what? And I'm like Andre in terms of preferences. I don't like pointy, sharp, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I try to hold myself to a higher standard and say, Regina, that's not your business. That's God's business, what is sent to you. But just, as, the basic mammal I am, I have preferences. I just think I shouldn't.
Absolutely.
Yes. Welcome, Father.
It's just like, I like blue, you like green.
Yeah, right. Father Skill, welcome. He says programmed, true. Scott says early 40s and 50s, the paper test was used by Black folks on other Black people. Yes, thank you. Hey, CJ says that it's marketing strategy plotted and planned for centuries because we are the biggest consumers of beauty products.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, because we think we're ugly.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it's marketing strategy plotted and planned for centuries. What can help us? Segregation from colonizers and uplifting. What can help us is segregation from colonizers and uplifting each other's communities. Yes, absolutely. Shakira says, address the trauma. Hey, girl, address the trauma and change the narrative. Absolutely. And it starts at home.
It does start at home.
It begins at home when your kids, just like Regina said, when her father-in-law, was it your father-in-law who was going to say it right?
Yeah.
Was going to indoctrinate her kids. She warned them. I've warned certain people on my other side's half of the family too, that had certain, and it wasn't their fault. They had indoctrination, bad thoughts about being dark skinned. And one person said in front of my then baby, who thank God didn't understand it, if I was light, I'll never forget what she said. If I was light skinned with long hair, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. And it was like the most proud sentence she ever said. And I was about 22 years old. And I'm looking at her like, gosh, I felt so sad for her. She must have felt like she was nothing. And I said, please don't ever say anything like that. I only had one child at the time. Don't ever say anything like that around Amina, ever. And she didn't even understand it. But I said, you can't. And she didn't. Oh, how we hurt our children. Andre says, charity begins at home and spreads abroad. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely does.
One thing I tried, it doesn't work. People don't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it on this show. In terms of all these products that people are selling us to tell us something's wrong with us, that we're ugly and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. Even the products that aren't about telling us we're ugly, we just consume blindly. It was cute. I bought it. Yeah. It was a good deal. I bought it.
That's true.
And we never ask, what are you doing with the money I'm giving you? Mm-hmm. How do you support my community? How do you uplift me with my money?
Yes.
Black people have the greatest brand name loyalty.
Yep.
Tide.
Yep.
Gotta be Tide.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm not saying Tide does or doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But we never ask.
We don't.
You know, you can look at any box of product and get an address, or everybody's got a website.
You're right.
How
many Black folks work there? Are they in upper management? Are they right? What do they do?
Yes.
You're right.
So I would think even if you gotta buy something because you think you ugly, all right, what are you doing to beautify my community, my life?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where did that money go? But whatever. Some people will do it. I won't say nobody does it, but that's a real hard thing.
Anybody does that. Can't find out one person probably. Anybody do that out there?
Regina does that. She's the one that told me about those paper towels.
Oh yeah, Brawny.
Brawny, yeah.
Right. The Koch brothers own Brawny. Like, no, don't buy that stuff.
That's all I had to do was say that one time.
You can Google it real easily. My big one is the difference in BJ's and Costco. BJ's, Trump, Nixon, Bush. Right. That's where they give if you wouldn't, I'm going off, but if you would not make a contribution to that political party,
then why would you?
Hobby Lobby, Trump, Olive Garden, Trump. Why would you give them your money? And you spend all this time on social media worrying about who's ugly, who's pretty, who's sexy, who you think you want to date. Take a minute and look up the places you shop.
Yeah.
And if they're not supporting you, don't support them. We have so much power that's untapped. Maybe, if we felt our financial power, we might see more of our beauty. I don't know. Maybe.
I want to segue a little bit and then read the chat. What do you think about Black business owners what do you think about increasing Black business owners, but yet having them follow some of the same standards that other businesses, not just white, like having their stores open on time, not having their prices inflated, not having an attitude if I walk in? That is saying everybody. I'm not saying it's your Black business, but we need to be better there as well so that we can uplift each other's community, and so that I can, buy things from your store. Please, if it says your bookstore is going to be open at 10, please be open at 10.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
You should have a higher standard knowing you're serving your own community.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I shouldn't have to, send away to New York or Boston to get candles for my Canara. I have a Black bookstore right here. I need to go there. You need to provide what we need as a people. I shouldn't have to go there and beg you to provide these candles every every Kwanzaa. Okay? Why don't we support each other in that way? And you're right. The same standards that the rest of the world uses. Open on time. Be there when you're supposed to be there. Provide what you're supposed to for the community. Help uplift us. Make sure that the products are of quality. All of the things that we know that we have to deal with when we go outside of our community. We should not have to deal with those things when we're inside of our community.
Be reliable.
Absolutely.
My question as a consumer to many companies, and this is a great question, you can use this. Why are you making it difficult for me to give you my money?
My money. Thank you.
Yes.
I cover the stuff.
Yes.
Can I help you? No, I guess you can't. I'm out. There's a restaurant right up the street. I will not go in. And the chick was so rude to me when I went in there. Like I was doing her a favor coming into that store. Now, of course, she didn't own that business. But you know what? That's not my fault. Not my problem. The owner should know what his customers, what his employees are doing, and then say something about it. I told him, I made a point of letting him know that I will never grace your store again because your employee was rude to me when I came in the door. She had her phone. She was looking at her phone. She looked up like, oh no, I'm busy trying to talk to my boyfriend, and here you are trying to buy something.
Wow.
I have no time for that.
No. Absolutely.
I tried to. There was a study done some years ago, not too many, within the last decade, And this sister, I can't remember her name now. She lectured at the Artist Collective, and she and her husband had vowed that they were going to spend that whole year buying everything and within the Black community. They were not going to go outside the Black community, and how difficult it was to make that happen. Wow. And I began to look at it at that point, because I would like to do that too. And I do understand the inflation, because Black people's money doesn't have the same power to buy things in bulk so that you can then sell it less, well, less than the average store. So I get that, and I factor that in when I have to go into a Black store. But at least be kind, be courteous, be on time, be reliable. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to go out of my way to spend, knowing that I have to spend more to support you, because I want to support you, then I ask for those simple things: common decency, common courtesy, open your behind up on time.
You don't want to tie that back into colorism. If we think we are ugly, what else do we think we are? What stems from that?
Yes.
Right. Maybe
and how does that manifest?
It's not worth it to
business and everything else. Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Let me get to the chat. We have about 4 minutes left. That's true, Regina. That really trickles down into everything. Let's see. Scott says, I think it is in answering your question, Regina. I think it's indoctrinated. What can help us is to slowly divest ourselves from the chains of capitalism. Segregation, separation is true. Jews in Germany don't let Nazis teach their kids, but we do. I think part of his we do.
Yeah.
Nasalim says, Willie Lynch whipped and brutalized emotional scars. Mm-hmm. We have to give each other grace. Andre says, Mama and Daddy made sure my Black skin was smooth and creamy with that Vaseline, cocoa butter, and what? Noxzema. Noxzema poison now. I remember Noxzema. I tried it once. It burned my skin. I said, never again. So I'm glad you had luck with it. Father Skill says, we tend not to realize how programmed we are. Yes, indeed. And that programming tends to blind us from what is boldly in front of us. Hence, we accept stuff. Yes. Andre says, wow, accountability from a Black business with question marks. Let it go, Denise, with the candles, laughing. Father Skill says,
I had to get my candles from him this year.
Yes, I remember that. Father Skill says, but we do not think we as Black patrons deserve to offer what we expect from our Black owners. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Riri. She says this was a great discussion. Deb says Oprah had gone into her store back then. The girl was rude to her. I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Professor X says, I agree with the comments about Black business. I also must say that the small Black businesses prices and are on average will be higher. And he was saying that you just finished his comment, the rest of it. Father Skill says, I agree that there are issues with our presentation as Black businesses, but we at times don't show the respect to others, so that at times is reflected with service received. Goes both ways. We must value each other, Nazalim says. And Deb says, as I said before, we have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Amen. So there you have it, folks.
End it on that note. Yes,
we will end it on that note because it's true. And we thank you so much, Regina, for enlightening us.
You're so welcome.
I mean, this was a powerful discussion. We couldn't have gotten more skin deep than right here. Okay, we couldn't have. And love the skin you're in. Love
you know it. You know it.
Okay.
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
All right. Take care. Love y'all.
All right. Take care.
Blessings, everybody.
What skin
you're in. Bye-bye.
All right. Peace. Stay tuned for Heart of Soul next with Daddy Lion. Come party with me in the chat. And then after that is going to be musical emancipation with Father Bird. Okay. Take care. Good night.
Good night.